especially the bands who have travelled over from Scotland. It's great to see them here. We have our own local band here, the Henry Joy McCracken Flute Band from Belfast. The Cam Guard Flute Band from Glasgow. Volunteer Bryn Jewish Flute Band, Scotland. And Glasgow Socialist Flute Band. These are all welcome. Thank you. This mural is dedicated to 4 young volunteers of the Fianna Eireann: Joyce Campbell, Bernard Fox, David McCauley, Joseph McComiskey. It formed part of an ongoing project that tells the history of this community through images like this and mountain making mural. In the coming months, more of these images reflecting our past will be erected throughout the area. Please support this project in any way you can. Thank you. I would like to call on Mickey McCauley and Paul Fox to come up and unveil the mural, please. Could I ask Sinead Adams to come up and read the proclamation, please?
The Provisional Government of the Irish Republic to the people of Ireland. Irish men and Irish women, in the name of God and of the dead generations from which she receives her old tradition of nationhood, Ireland through us summons her children to her flag and strikes her first freedom. Having organised and trained her manhood through her secret revolutionary organisation, the Irish Republican Brotherhood, and through her open military organisations, the Irish Volunteers and the Irish Citizen Army, having patiently perfected her discipline, having resolutely waited for the right moment to refute itself, she now seizes that moment, supported by her exiled children in America and by gallant allies in Europe, but relying in the first on her own strength, she strikes in full confidence of victory. We declare the right of Irish people to the ownership of Ireland and to the unfettered control of Irish destinies, to be sovereign and indefeasible. The long insertion of that right by a foreign people and government has not extinguished that right, nor can it ever be extinguished, except by the destruction of the Irish people. In every generation, the Irish people have asserted their right to national freedom and sovereignty. 6 times during the past 300 years, they have asserted it in arms. Standing on that fundamental right, and again asserting it in the arms and the face of the word, we hereby proclaim the Irish Republic as a sovereign independent state, and we pledge our lives and the lives of our comrades in arms to the cause of its freedom, of its welfare, and of its escalation above the nations. The Irish Republic is entitled and hereby claims the alliance of every Irish man and woman, The Republic guarantees religious and civil liberty, equal rights and equal opportunities to all its citizens, declares its resolve to pursue the happiness and prosperity of the whole nation and of all its parts, cherishing all the children of the nation equally, and oblivious to the differences carefully fostered by an alien government which has divided a minority from the majority in the past. Until our arms have brought the opportune moment for the establishment of a permanent national government, representative of the whole people of Ireland and elected by the suffrages of all our men and women, the provisional government hereby constituted will administer the civil and military affairs of the Republic in trust to the people. We place the cause of the Irish Republic under the protection of the Most High God, whose blessing we invoke upon our arms, and we pray that no one who serves that cause will dishonour it by cowardice, inhumanity or rapine. In this supreme hour, the Irish nation must, by its valour and discipline, and by the readiness of its children to sacrifice themselves for the common good, prove itself worthy of the august destiny to which it is called. Signed on behalf of the provisional government.
I'd like to introduce a man who has written a book about the Fianna, about the roots. Could you give a big welcome to Damien Lawler, please?
I'd like to say, first of all, thanks very much for the invite to speak today. I was just thinking about it there a second ago. It's about 10 years ago that I realised that there hadn't been a history written of Fianna Eireann, and decided that I'd try to start to do a bit of research work around it. Over the next 2 or 3 years, I realised quite quickly that you possibly couldn't write the full history from 1909 up as far as 2009. It wouldn't have been possible. The source material wasn't there between 1920 and 1970. There was a lot of material there around the 1916 Rising, the Black and Tan War, and the Civil War, and then after that there was huge gaps in terms of the historical record. So I wrote a history of Fianna Eireann from 1909 as far as 1923, the Irish Revolution up to that stage. It's been a huge privilege to be invited to the unveiling of the mural today and to the annual commemoration that's organised here in Ardoyne in terms of the Fianna. I'd like to thank the organisers, and I'd like to thank the families for the invitation for today. Okay. On this Easter Saturday, we are gathered here today to remember 4 young Fianna members who died in Ardoyne in 1872. When I was reading back over the last couple of weeks about the Fianna members from Ardoyne that died, it struck me how many Fianna members died throughout all of Belfast and throughout all of the north at that time. It also struck me the age of a lot of the IRA volunteers who died in 70, 71, 72, most of them 17, 18, 19. I think we're probably in a different period of struggle now that people recognise that you should give a young person their teenage years before they become actively involved in armed struggle. But it was striking how much of the weight of the war in Ireland in those years was carried by very young people. And it's important to remember those 4 people: David McCauley, Josh Campbell, Josie Comiskey and Bernard Fox from Ardoyne. The stories of the deaths of these young men demonstrate the intensity of the war in Ardoyne at that time. And the young men all over Ireland answered that call and decided to take part in the fight for Ireland's freedom. When you look at what happened to those 4 young men, David McCauley at 15, he died in a training accident when IRA volunteers or the Fianna volunteers were carrying out an active training. Josh Campbell was assassinated by the Brits while trying to defend this area from loyalists. Josie Comiskey, only 17, while moving a weapon for the IRA during an IRA operation, killed by a British sniper. Bernard Fox, executed by the Brits also. And then you start to ask yourself the question, why did these 4 young people find themselves in the position that they were in? And it becomes then important to understand history. When you see the sunburst flag there, you see the logo of the Fianna, you begin to understand the importance of researching it. The Fianna Eireann was formed in 1909. It was formed largely by Countess Markievicz and Bulmer Hobson, a native of this city. Markievicz at first, in early 1909, was horrified to read about the organisation of the Boys Brigade and the Baden-Powell Boy Scouts throughout all of the south of Ireland. And they held a monster rally in Clontarf in Dublin. At this rally, thousands of young Irish people saluted the Lord Lieutenant, the Queen's representative in Ireland, and there was much display of of Union Jacks and of English symbolism. And Markovitch determined that she would overcome this situation. She started to speak at any public meetings, so Republican gatherings like this, commemorations, public meetings, she would get up, she would speak about the importance of organising young Republicans. Nobody much listened to her. I'm sure it's a similar thing for a lot of Republican women that they don't get listened to. She then went on to organise an organisation called the Red Branch Knights, which was like a Boy Scouts group for young Republicans, very, very badly organised. Again, not unlike a lot of Republican projects. They went camping, they got absolutely drowned, and they abandoned ship halfway through the camping thing. They also lost the donkey that was supposed to be carting around all their equipment as well. And then, by chance, at a going-away party for a guy called Frank Maloney. Frank Maloney was on the executive of Sinn Féin in 1909, and she was at his going-away party. He was out of work and he was leaving to go to New York. Markovitch meets Bulmer Hobson, and the two of them get talking. And Hobson explains to her that there was an earlier the Fianna Eireann which had been organised in Belfast. Now this was an Irish language cultural organisation, an Irish sporting organisation which was organised in West Belfast. There was about 9 groups in the organisation. They played a lot of football, they studied the Irish language and things like that. And and when the two of them got talking, they then set about organising the Fianna Eireann, which we recognise from 1909 onwards. There's a lot of honourable history. The thing I picked out to talk about today is an event as part of the 1916 Rising, because it's Easter week and that's what we're here to commemorate. The Sunday before the Easter Rising, in Clontarf, the place where Markovitch had read about the Baden-Powell Boy Scouts meeting and the Boys Brigade having a rally for the British occupation. In the town hall in Clontarf, there was an old man named Mr. McGinn, and Mr. McGinn was an old Fenian who had been out in the Fianna Rising in 1867, and not unlike, I suppose, a lot of Republicans here are familiar with, he gave the keys over to the Irish Republican Brotherhood at the time. He allowed them to use the place for meetings. So a fellow Patrick O'Daly was instructed to turn up at Clontarf Town Hall on the morning of the of the Sunday before the Easter Rising. He's told to sit opposite and to watch for any police activity. Again, people here will be very familiar with it. He's told to dick around and make sure there's no police activity in the area as the meeting takes place. Tom Clark turns up. He watches Thomas McDonough turning up. Sean McDermott, he sees him going in for the meeting itself. And then eventually, as he sits there watching for police activity, we no problem watching for police activity here today, mind. But he sits there to watch for police activity. None comes. He's called into the meeting itself. And here he's asked to discuss a plan for blowing up the British magazine fort, which is in the Phoenix Park in Dublin. The British at this stage stored all their ammunition, stored most of their weapons, and all their gun cotton for their big guns in the magazine fort in Dublin. O'Daly had been working there. He was also an Irish volunteer. Him and Sean McDermott had come up with a plan for blowing this up. There was a number of questions to be resolved at the meeting. The first was whether it could be carried out, whether the operation could be carried out at daylight, whether they could rob some weapons rather than just blowing them all up, and also whether they could, who would be responsible for carrying out the attack. The other discussion was around what the strength of the garrison was, where the keys were to be able to get into the different places where the guns were hidden and stuff. You push on a week. They've been busy organising this. Colin Colbert, who's a graduate of the Fianna, he's now one of the main organisers of the Irish Volunteers. He's working along with Eamon Martin, who's the OC of the Fianna in Dublin at the time, and Patrick O'Daly, and they plan out the operation. On the morning itself, they approach the magazine fort. There's about 20 young fellas. Some are members of the Fianna Eireann, some are members of the Irish Volunteers because of the confusion on Easter Sunday and Easter Monday morning. All of the Fianna Eireann members don't turn up, but the majority, about 15 of them, are the Fianna Eireann. They have a football with them. Because the Phoenix Park in Dublin is traditionally a lot of soccer matches, traditionally a lot of football matches there on a Sunday morning. They're passing the ball back and forth as if they're heading for football training past the garrison. They walk up right by the gate. When they get to the gate, they rush the sentry. They bait the head of him, they take the gun off him, and some more of them rush into the guard room inside. They then notice that there's another, British soldier, that he's on the parapet upstairs, or on the parapet on the edge of the base itself. It's quite a big base, it's still there in the Phoenix Park. Two of them run up the stairs to get at him. He lunges at them with his bayonet, he slightly wounds one of them, if nothing too serious, and one of them, and the other guy shoots him. At this stage, he starts declaring that he's an Irishman, that he's got 7 kids, and he really could do without being killed. They drag him downstairs wounded, they throw him into the guard room with the rest of the British soldiers that they've arrested. Also, the commander of the base, the Playfairs, have been imprisoned there as well. They then set about their business of destroying all the weapons that they can, destroying all the ammunition that they can. They use the paraffin oil, which is in the base itself, and they burn all of these. And the explosion that takes place sets off the rising itself. As well as researching, what do you call it, in the Fianna Eireann, I was struck, that this is what I'm going to finish on. I know what it's like listening to long speeches at commemorations. What do you call it? I know that last year there was about 20 or 30 young members of the Ardyne community dressed in Fianna uniforms for this commemoration. I also read at the time and went back through in the last couple of days all the condemnation from Messrs Dodds and McCausland and different figures like that. And I was quite struck by it at the time that Republicans, according to the media and according to pro-British politicians, aren't allowed to commemorate their dead, aren't allowed to have a bit of pageantry for those commemorations when commemorating dead volunteers or dead Fianna activists. And about a month after it took place last year, I carried out a bit of research and went into how the British actually carry out their recruitment to this day of soldiers. While there are no child soldiers in the Republican ranks, there are, what do you call it, the British every year, they're the only army in Western Europe which recruits 16 and 17 year olds. They recruited 5,000, last year they recruited 5,000 16 and 17 year olds, 5,000 children. They spend over 3 billion on the recruitment campaigns. They go into schools, they have, what do you call it, if you go on the internet, they have a magazine called Camouflage where they, what do you call it, where you can go on and practice being a British sniper. You can get a fairly detailed instruction in the latest assault rifles and heavy machine guns that they're going to use. And in the literature that advertises it, it says that this is for 14 to 17 year olds. They also, what do you call it, the quote from the head of the British Army's recruitment wing says that, what do you call it, they're targeting kids as young as 7 or 8 in terms of having people at having different members of the parachute regiment at different festivals and at different air shows and things like that to try and attract people along. So it is a bit rich. There's loads of other stuff you could say in that, but it is a bit rich when you hear pro-British politicians saying the Republicans can't commemorate their dead, can't commemorate young soldiers and young volunteers who died for Ireland. Once again, I'd like to say thanks very much for the opportunity to speak here today, and I'd like to congratulate the organising committee for the great mural and for the great efforts in the commemoration. Thank you.
Thank you, Damon. I'm going to ask Damien to present the families of the 4 volunteers a book and a copy of this mural, a framed copy of this mural. Could I ask Mickey to come up first? Could I ask Paul Fox to come up? Could I ask Mark Mural to come up as the representative of George Campbell? And Ian Clark to come up to represent Joseph McComiskey. Could I ask any family members if they've got reeds today, could come up and lead them, please?
Over here.
Can I have a minute's silence, please? Thank you. Could I ask the Gone God band to play on Unveiling, please? Everybody before they go, there's a protest on at 4:30 up at the Bone Hills there. It's in connection with antisocial behaviour. There's a new complex being built up and it's being destroyed. And I would ask people to go up and show your support, to tell these thugs to get off their back. Thank you very much.